Um, Good evening, everyone from the audience. We are going to go live in around 5 minutes from now. In the meantime, please sit back and relax, and grab any popcorn or anything if you want to entertain yourself throughout this 2 hours. And hope everyone enjoys the upcoming panel discussion that's going to happen in a short moment. In the meantime, we are going to I'd like to introduce our sponsors this year, Kidocode and Bank Islam. They are proudly our sponsors for the event this year, and we hope that we are able to bring you a pleasant event this year to help carry out this, make sure this year's event is a success. To roughly introduce Kidok, our organization itself, we are YME, and we are actually a student organization built to empower Malaysian youth in the fields of science, technology, engineering, and maths. YME is one of the fastest growing STEM-oriented student bodies today, and we've been organizing MSTW since 2016. This year is our 7th edition, and we are going to be trying to strive to perform and deliver outstanding standards to all our members and the fellow youth worldwide. YME strives to provide a professional social platform where passionate and like-minded students can connect with each other and as well as with experts across the wide range of STEM fields, especially in the 21st century. This year, our theme is sustainability, and we have chosen it to educate others on this concept and highlight its applications across the various industries. So we hope that you, the audience, can link with us on this topic. And of course, we're actually going to talk about the 3 pillars that are surrounded in sustainability: social, environmental, and also economic aspects. So in some cases, there are also more importance in environmental at the moment. So especially that area is especially controversial at the moment. So we hope that we can bring some insights to that with today's session as we talk about data and the overall balance that ensures our protection of the environment and also improving the quality of life. For today's session, this is actually the second day of our 4-day lineup today is our first day of our 4-day lineup of data, AI, energy, and biotechnology that we'll be focusing on throughout the week. And today we'll be talking about data. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speakers too. So today we'll be inviting Dr. Erhan. We'll be inviting Erhan and also Mr. Koh Wai Hao, as well as we also have Dr. Stam, and finally also our fellow and last but not least, sorry, give me a moment. We also have our last but not least, Mr. Suhasan. We unfortunately couldn't have Sharala be here today with us, and today we instead have Dr. Stam today from CADS. Just to briefly and introduce our panelists, we have Wai Hao, which is from Khazanah. We also have Suhasan from Money Lion, who is also their product manager, AI product manager, and also finally Erhan which is the co-founder of Kotak Sakti. And without further ado, I'd like to have our speakers introduce themselves. Yeah, so we can start with Mr. Wai Hao.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Wai Hao. I'm a data scientist. I work in Malaysia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, Khazanah Nasional. So although I'm a data scientist, I've started branching out into web development just to get my hands a bit, just to expand my verticals, because I've discovered that data visualization tools tend to have limits. So what do? I build image recognition systems, I build chatbots, I build web apps, quite a lot of things. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh yeah, so I used to work in Star. I used to be a consultant in EY. I used to be from Invoke Malaysia. My first job, I was a lecturer in further mathematics. Then I made the switch. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Waihao. Moving on, can I have Suhasan?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. So it's great to be here. My name is Suhasan. So I'm currently an AI product manager at Moneyline. If you haven't heard of Moneyline, Moneyline is a financial technology company in the US. But interestingly, our tech hub is in KL. So I initially started off as a data scientist there and eventually moved on to an AI product manager role. So you might not have heard of this role before. Essentially, it's a product manager role, but instead of working with engineers and designers to ship software products, I work with data scientists and analysts to derive insights, to run experiments, and to build data-driven algorithms to continuously push the products to greater heights. So my current interest in data science is really to maximize the value we get from data in the most efficient way, and also to strengthen the bridge between the products and data, and making every product data driven. So that's it. Thank you for having me here. I'm looking forward to the rest of the evening.
Thank you for that pleasant introduction, Suhasan. Next up, can I have Erhan?
Hi, my name is Irhan. I run Kotak Sakti. It's a data analytics setup that do manage analytics for enterprise clients. Previously, I was in a few roles in Iskandar Associates as a consultant, in Mara Corporation as head of real estate, and then at Khazanah as research for 9 years. So that's roughly my background. I was trained as an engineer in electrical engineering, and then I took a master's in economics. Thank you.
Thank you, Erhan. And finally, Dr. Stam from CATS.
Hello, everyone. I am with CATS. I'm Chief Data Officer, and as part of my role, basically, we're responsible in collecting data, okay, which is basically today's session. Okay, that's really my passion. Collecting data, making sense of the world of how we are using it for many, many different things. Also, part of my activities is leading the development of CATS AI algorithmic capability and expanding it to serve our customers. Looking also at generating data analytics and insights for CATS, of course, and our customers and the students that we have. Now, my background is I have started studied in Greece physics and had a PhD in mobile communications in UK thousands of years ago. So I'm the older basically here. So my background is really STEM, but at some point, of course, I moved towards data science, and that's why basically I'm with you today. And also, by the way, I forgot to tell you that I'm actually based in Greece now, but I travel and visit Malaysia very often, especially before COVID. I used to be there very, very frequently, but since then I'm sort of more remotely now. Hopefully, I will see you again. Okay, that will be all from me as well.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Stam. And I'd like to finally introduce myself. I'm Ze Wei. I'll be a prospective student of the University of Sheffield, studying mechanical engineering, and I'll be your moderator for today. All right. So perhaps we can just start off simply on our basically about data. All right. So especially in terms of sustainability, we're going to be talking about that today, of course. Perhaps I'd like to have, we're going to be talking about basically the whole area of sustainability. Of course, I've mentioned environmental, social, and also economic. So we'll be actually having each panelist here actually for the audience to know. We'll actually have each panelist go through some of our questions that we've actually, prepared for them. So if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments, and we'll be going through them after the session. And please, take your time, and we'll be, having some questions going right now. So perhaps we can start off with this question. So basically, in terms of sustainability, how does data contribute to, combating issues arising from it? In terms of perhaps, in the environmental aspect I've mentioned just now, Erhan, can you share, some of the instances or, experience where data was involved in this aspect before? Perhaps some, projects that you have worked on at Tenaga and also Petronas.
Okay. Just a bit of background. What we do is manage analytics. So clients usually pass us the data that they have, and then what we do is trying to make sense of the data based on the objectives that they have, and help them manage the technology stack to deliver the analytics. That's one. Number two, because we operate as if we're a consultant, we go to a lot of companies to pitch for analytics job. We understand that I think ESG plays a big role in what they think strategically about the direction of the company, and they're feeling the stress because the funds are now looking for ESG as the objective of their investment. And we're seeing companies, especially in energy-related stocks or energy-related companies, for example, in Tenaga and Petronas, are looking for ways to actually measure how much they look at the carbon emission, the carbon footprint, and the effect of what they have in the environment. That is number one measure. Number two is actually trying to do analytics on what can they reduce, what can they optimize in producing the product that they want. So we're seeing a lot of this, and then we're seeing a lot of board members now being informed about the importance of ESG, and now they're aware of what they think about how ESG plays a role in companies. In some of the board members that we engage, they are looking at a lot of variables that is available. So I think the awareness is there, the way forward is there, but I think the direction that people are looking at now is actually how does companies operationalize a lot of this data into their daily operation. That's roughly the experience I have.
Yep.
Question?
Yes, thanks, Erhan. Thanks, Erhan, on that aspect. So we talked about environmental just now, and you also talked about some of your experiences, of course. Perhaps can I have Dr. Stam introduce yourself? What is the social aspect that is talking about sustainability? Like being the well-being of a company. It's quite important of especially your role as a CTO, I believe. What the whole everything concerning well-being. Data actually plays a large role in regulating and maintaining that aspect. So perhaps can you introduce us to what does data is actually at CATS itself, and also maybe your clients. How does CATS try and tackle this issue of well-being in terms of that?
Yes, of course. Now, the question here of how data can help us in order to improve the sustainability of the organization in terms of the well-being and the overall culture and the environment and the happy culture and environment. It is basically on using data in order to improve this environment. Okay. Now, there has been a lot of research these days, and from several years about the main reasons people leaving their jobs. And leaving a job is the most obvious reason that something is not going well, of course, within one organization. And it appears that lack of career development and advancement is really the number one role. A very big sort of research I read recently, covering not only US but also Southeast Asia. People leaving jobs actually stated that as the primary reason, to leave. So how this is a fact, okay? But how we can use data actually to identify what is the reasons behind people unhappiness and the reasons why they leave, is that we can use workforce analytics in order to make sense of what is the causes behind this type of resignations within the organization and act upon it. Okay. Besides lack of career development and advancement, other causes could be team leadership. Actually, having a bad direct boss is another major cause of a lot of unhappiness. The work culture, of course, lack of equal opportunities, okay, and of course also pay or benefits is a very important role that drives resignations, okay. But we talk about these are the different causes that have been identified so far in the literature about what causes basically resignations. But specifically for every company, we can use data which are kept usually in the HR in order to identify, to reveal what is basically happening there. And we have done this exercise with Malaysian companies, and we found, for instance, one company had issues with paying actually the bonuses in particular, and some other company. The major reason for for people leaving the organization was some inadequate direct managers. Okay, and actually this is one of the big reasons why people leave companies as well, okay, together with the lack of career development and advancement, is that and I'm not talking about at C-level, type of leadership. The direct managers is always the major concern, in order to have a happy environment. Okay, and this is how we can find this. By using data, we can identify basically the causes that result in a bad working environment. Any question?
Yeah, thank you for that. That is a brilliant explanation of how data can actually be used in locating these things, these specific issues, which can't be picked up simply through conversation. Sometimes having a whole large form that can be sent out to all the employees, that will certainly help in terms of especially for those larger companies. And that's definitely a point that is well raised. Yeah. So moving on to the economic aspect, I'd like to have Suhasan share on how, in terms of data, how does it help in the businesses becoming more sustainable. Can you perhaps share your opinion on how this has been carried out, and also perhaps your experience at MoneyLion?
Sure. So here I want to talk about the economic sustainability, particularly the economic sustainability of individuals. So this particularly for individuals where they could have access to any financial products, regardless of their background or current financial status. So the reason I'm bringing that is, as far as I'm aware of, in the US, right, there are like millions of Americans were ignored or even taken advantage of the traditional banks. So that was initially one of the reasons why MoneyLion was initially founded. So we aim to rewire the American banking system to make money more approachable for everyone, and to give consumers a more accessible and sustainable path to their financial goals. They're not restricted by or they're not blocked by their status. So how do we use data to achieve this, right? In the US, it's interesting. So we have something called open banking. So sadly, it's not in Malaysia yet. So this is where your bank transaction data or other accounts related data are no longer tied to a single bank. In Malaysia, if you have like a Maybank account, probably the Maybank account transactions will only be kept within Maybank, so it won't be shared. So in the US, through open banking, that information will be shared by another third party, but of course with the user's consent, of course, right? There's all thing about PDPA on that. So what does open banking, that access to data allows to do, right? So in the lending business, right, we have the lenders and borrowers. So on the lender's side, we can now better profile a customer's risk, apart from relying on their credit score, right? So right now we have like credit score for a given individual, and we say, hey, this guy can pay back the loan or not. So now with the additional data and probably more dynamic data, more real-time data, that we can assess a customer's risk, whether they can pay back or not. On the other side, on the borrower side, now even if you have a low credit score, right, we have companies like MoneyLion, which looks at your transactions data to derive insight on whether you still are able to repay or not. So having that additional data, democratized and accessible for everyone, that allows us, both the lenders and borrower side, to take advantage of that. Of course, so one example is I can share is the product that I work with in MoneyLion called InstaCash. So essentially, it's very different from, it's a very unique product. You might not have in Malaysia yet, but it's pretty popular product in the US. So this is an advance from their paycheck. So as you see, majority of the Americans actually live paycheck to paycheck, which means, and they get paid like, as opposed to Malaysians who usually get paid like monthly, they have like weekly or bi-weekly pay cycles. So there are a large percentage of the people who run out of money before the next pay cycle. So essentially, InstaCash is there. Hey, just share us your loan data, your transaction data, and we will see whether you can get an advance from your pay cycle, advance from your paycheck. So the old way, you can think of like, if you don't have this data, right, customer, and you only have the credit score, customer applies for a loan, their credit score is probably checked, and if it's low, gets rejected. So the new way that the companies like MoneyLion try to bring in is, can we use this data to bring the access to cash advance to more available, right? So the new way is, they download MoneyLion app, they come in, and they, through the bank open banking, they link their bank accounts, and our algorithms will analyze and segment those transactions to look for any income data. And using that income data, then we say, hey, these guys likely to have this much income at this pay frequency, right? So the algorithms will be able to do that. And then without ever looking at the credit score, we will give them the cash advance that they need. So, and on top of that, this is, usually payday loans have really, really high interest rate. So that will scare off a lot of users out, essentially, blocking their access. But InstaCash right now doesn't charge any interest. So it's even more readily available for everyone. So they can use it to survive, to thrive, and they can, use that to achieve their financial goals. Sadly, the open banking is not available in Malaysia yet, as far as I'm aware. But since MoneyLion has recently been awarded the digital banking license here, working with Aon, I believe something like that, or some kind of financial revolution, it's about to happen. So we'll wait and see how that plays out. So hopefully we'll have more financial innovative products like InstaCash in Malaysia.
Yeah, thank you, Hassan. So you shared about the, basically in terms of the consumer perspective on this aspect. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So in terms of how does this kind of reflect the sustainable whole focus of does this kind of make I guess in terms of the sustainability focus, can you share like how that kind of relates to it?
Sure. So this particular sustainability is on the individual wellness level. But
Yeah.
if you're talking about like environmental sustainable goals, I guess I can share a little bit about from my memory. Right now we use technologies like algorithms and robot advisors that particularly segment which investments is worth doing, right, in terms of their I guess Wai Hao could share more on the investment side, but we can still use the data and the algorithms there to optimize what kind of impact you want to have on both the businesses and then the environment, right?
I see. Noted. That's an interesting point. All right. So then I think that's quite insightful from you, Hassan. I think I'd like to actually finally move on to our actually last aspect of sustainability. So Wai-Hao, can you share in terms of your experience and on this?
Yeah, I think Suhasan is prepping for his future role as sales manager or something. That's why his sales pitch is so effective. Okay, yeah, a bit about governance, right? So the question is, how does data contribute to combating issues arising from sustainability?
Yeah.
My argument is this can actually go both ways. So here's the story, right? We all know that the 15 general elections are coming in Malaysia. All of us are expected to participate, except for Dr. Stein. I don't think he's a Malaysian. So the way you win elections is actually pretty simple. You just need to get the most votes on your side. That's it. Your election campaign can take a few strategies. Number one is you can persuade fan sitters to vote for you. You can boost the attendance of your core supporters. It can go the other way around. You can make sure the people who are voting for the other side don't turn up. Also can. So these things do happen. The reason that this can be done is because behind the scenes, where very few of us know, there are people who actually score each of us based on our data, like who we previously voted. Based on where we stay, based on our age, based on our gender, based on our ethnicity. There are people who do that. And all of us actually have a score in some database somewhere in the world. Probability of me voting for, let's say, pass, 0.1. Probability of me voting for a particular political party is 0.2, and so on. So I was part of that team. That's why I can tell the story. The reason that every one of us have these scores is because there are people or groups of consultants who go around the world pitching analytics services to politicians of national political campaigns. And these politicians can come from across the political spectrum. It could be center-left. It could be the Brexit campaign, which identify pro-Brexiteers, that's how they want to vote. It could be Trump's campaign, driving up the attendance of pro-Republicans. That's how they won his term in office. So data and analytics can be used to advance the agenda of politicians who stand for certain issues. They can also be used not only to help elect people who eventually pursue progressive policies. They can be used to put climate deniers into office as well. So this thing works both ways. As for how data can be used, it all depends on the people who are advocating sustainability. There are people out there who will advocate for the sustainable use, for the good use of data. There are people who have their own selfish and personal agendas who would also want to pursue their kind of agenda. These people also do exist. Used the right way, you can elect people who will eventually pursue policies that voters identify with. Used the wrong way, you're going to set back the climate agenda for years. You're going to put people who don't do work in the government and other issues that we're also currently facing. Probably governments around the world are facing too. So yeah, that's my answer. It all depends on the people who are doing this.
Yeah, thank you. So that's basically, that's a good point on, how in terms of election, how that can actually influence the changes in terms of sustainability, in terms of the government, how they are aligned to pursuing that goal. I think that's something we have been, around that is a bit struggling around in the recent years in terms of Malaysia's political stability. But let's try and move away from that area right now. We're going to talk about a bit more technical now. So we're going to move on to our second section then, in terms of the applications of data and its the whole current trend that is in Malaysia right now or worldwide. So Right now, currently we have data being used in their respective fields. So we've seen that data is being used in the businesses a lot. We've seen how it's been used for election campaigns, and how we've learned that how it's been used in terms of the well-being of people, and also in terms of the general environmental aspect. So I'd like to hear from perhaps starting with Erhan again, how some of the projects that we've already talked about this, but perhaps any other projects that you yourself have been doing that have dealt with some data that is how was it implemented, and we'd like to learn a bit more on that and the technical aspect of some of the things that been used.
I think when we start with any data projects, we usually try to understand the business logics behind the data analytics work. First, we usually ask clients what they want, what's the direction of the companies, how are they looking at the future of the companies, which way are they going, which are the trends that they are seeing. Because we think while we are full stack data team, we don't understand each company's direction. That's number one. Number two, usually the companies that we work with, they already have their data engineer team that put all of the data into their data warehouse, build their data infrastructure, and now they need a special team to actually analyze the data and look at how can they churn data that to help them make decisions, business decision in their daily work. But I think what we have done well is actually companies like CATS or AWS, Microsoft have trained a lot of people, and they now understand what needs to be done. But sometimes they don't have the time to actually get it done themselves, or they don't have the necessary skills while understanding what to do, but maybe not how to do it. So a lot of demands in data now. Because people are aware what they can do with their own data. So that's the general trend that we saw in a lot of the companies that we serve. That's number one. Number two is how are people using this data. Is that
Oh man,
they are
that time to light.
While we wait. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Welcome back, Erhan.
Typically, thanks. Where did I miss? Where did I stop?
So
okay, I'll just continue. So the three things that they usually ask: one, on the revenue side; number two is on the operation side. How do I optimize my operation? Number three is actually cost saving. But the biggest work that we receive is actually the two things. One, the optimization, especially on the engineer side. They know what to do, how to optimize. But with the current data and the cheap computing resources, they're only asking, can we fully understand the whole data set that they have and then optimize the operation? Revenue side usually comes from how do I segmentize my clients? How do I target certain clients that I want so that I increase my margin? How do I convert, improve the conversion? But these are not. The what we do is actually not tied to how they convert in their website. It's actually how do I convert the actual customers that I have and the interaction that they have with the customers. So that's roughly the three things that we saw how people use data in the company. Thank you.
Thanks for that sharing, Erhan. So now that we've heard from Erhan's perspective, can I have Suhasan share his projects instead?
Yep. So maybe I can share on fintech industry on this one. So fintech is probably one of the industries where data is probably the most valuable asset, arguably. So as I understand, the core drivers of the industry include like transaction-based, moving money from one place to another, or more investment or credit-based, where you provide loan or investment products to an individual organization, based on their ability to repay. Both are required data and both are data. So either at an individual level or organization level, you need data, right? So at Moneyline, like we have a lot of products. We offer from cash advance to digital banking to credit building to personal finance to even crypto. So this means for a given user, we can study their usage of all of those products in all those segments. So this enables us, that means a lot of data for us to go through, and that will enable us to understand what exactly customer wants, and that will allow us to provide the right product to the right person. So we use from complicated AI models, deep learning, to simple decision boundaries models to make business decisions. So we use, as I mentioned before, for Instacash, we have a machine learning model that essentially, for a given user, it assigns a score, whether they can repay or not. That's purely based on their transactions data, nothing on their credit score. So we use that. We also determine from the algorithms, when to collect. So from the transactions data, we can see what's the income like, what's the sort of pay frequency like, whether they're getting paid monthly or weekly, and that will allow us to better time our collection, right? So all of that related to, like, because essentially Instacash is a sort of a credit product. It's not really credit. You're not allowed to say credit. It's a cash advance product, but it involves people. Yes, yeah, legally, actually, we're not allowed to say credits. It's more on the advanced product, but it is still legal for the users to not pay back. Yeah, it's a pretty gray area. So that means we will have to be very optimized, right, in terms of how much to give for a person and when to collect. We also have a marketplace within the app. We have third-party offers placed. So we are using AI models to show which one to show to which user. So eventually that will optimize the click-through rates. And of course, right, fintech, you have money flowing around, we have fraud people, right? So the fraud risk will always be there. So we are also seeing how we can use AI models to come up with, to prevent fraudulent risk and to identify potential fraudulent people, right? We also have a lot of simple decision models that will optimize revenues. So, yeah. So I think we have just scratched the surface of the power of data in fintech, especially I think when it comes to users' transaction data, there's a lot of things we can still learn, we can still optimize for the benefits of the user. In fact, I think we just got started in Southeast Asia, and probably US is still ahead. So, but we're still there. We have company like with the digital banking license. I think there are a lot more fintech opportunities await us in Malaysia. Yep.
Thanks, Hassan. Yeah. So then perhaps next we can have Dr. Stam. So you shared about the well-being just now. Perhaps you can, since you just touched all on the surface of what the whole what we can consider. Perhaps you can share some some projects that CATS has been doing, or if that's possible. But of course, perhaps you can just talk in general, like what do you think the current trend is in this area of data? Yeah. Seems like the connection isn't very well from here, but for the audience, if you've just joined us, we're actually focusing on the applications of data and the current trends, and of course, welcome to the data panel session today, and we hope that you have a pleasant experience throughout this whole afternoon. In the meantime, while we wait for Dr. Stam to get back, perhaps how we can just go ahead and share your in terms of, since we talked about politics already just now, maybe what you've done actually at Khazanah, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. So it's not really for politics, right? It's across the entire spectrum. So I was I was quite humored when Suhasan was talking about Moneyline and his products, and then credit. That's how it went down. Okay, projects about Khazanah, right? There are certain projects where data people are expected to build AI models or to clean data. So that's at the back end. There's another type of project where where you might be expected to work on the back end and the front end. So front end, like if you open a browser, that's why you get the front end. The back end, most users don't see. That's your APIs, that's your search algorithm, and so on. So there's one particular project which I'm working on. So we all know how Google works. Google's a search engine. If you key in certain search terms, it will give you search results based on its search index. Most companies, mine included, has a large repository of documents which cannot be indexed. One of these particular documents, the format is called PPDF. So all of us are familiar with PDFs. Mine is PPDF, protected PDF. Basically, these documents are encrypted. So if you store them inside SharePoint or Google Drive, and you key in a search term to look for these documents cannot be found because these search engines just cannot read these documents. So what I did was I constructed the front end, but I pointed the front end to an unencrypted version of these documents. So I have two repositories, one encrypted, one not encrypted. The search API points to the unencrypted one, but returns results from the encrypted repository. So in these kind of projects, you're expected to work on both how do you search these documents, how do you index these documents, and design the front end, so what users will see on the website. So this is basically called web application, web app. This is a field called web development. So this goes beyond data analytics already. These projects do exist in a lot of companies. The reason that these people rarely take these kind of projects is because most data scientists are they're only back-end people. They don't design the front-end website. That's why I started branching out into web development, because I started noticing that these projects, a lot of companies have these problems. A lot of these problems are solvable. And not only for the company that you're working for, you can also pick up a few side jobs here and there. So it's actually quite lucrative as well. So that's the main reason I went into web development. So these are the kind of projects which do exist. Some of you might run into it. If you run into it, I hope you all embrace the challenge and try and finish the project.
I think I just want to chime in on that note. I think when dealing with non-data people, the muggers, they actually think that this is a data project is actually something that they can buy off the shelf. While actually, I mean, a lot of it is actually iterative, and people don't understand it. That's why usually they think data team can do magic, and hence Kotak Sakti's name lah. The issue is always how do I get to what they want, trying to minimize the work that we do to actually get to that objective. How? What do you think?
So the danger is, if you don't do the project, people say, you useless lah. If you do the project, people think you can do magic. Either way, so you can learn. I opted to do that because I wanted to learn. I'm always keen to learn. It's only since March I picked up JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. Once I started understanding the basics of it, then I could see what it could be used for. So now, if you ask me to construct a web app, most people will just rely on Power BI, Tableau, Google Data Studio. I have maximum flexibility on what I can choose to show to the user. So that's the advantage for me lah.
Yeah, great points raised by Wai Hao and also Erhan. Yeah. So as we're actually running a bit short on time, right now I'm going to just speed up and go through. We're going to just go through to the next question actually. Right now we have we've already talked about the projects, some of the projects, and some of the current aspects that have been considered. Front end, back end, and also the whole packaged problems and challenges that come with it. Especially Wai Hao, he he's just picked up web development, so that's great to hear. But perhaps you can share in terms of the you already shared a few names there just now: HTML, CSS, and also JavaScript. Can you share perhaps a bit more on what are perhaps the deployment in that area, the focus in terms of what are the tools available? Yeah, in terms of the.
Okay, so if you were to look up JavaScript, you will run into so many frameworks online: Vue.js, Vanilla.js, Angular, React. The information overload is real. That was what stopped me from pursuing web development last year. The reason I decided to pick it up this year was because there's an organization called the Lead.io. They actually offered a course, and it's actually run by a friend, Dr. Lau. That's where I started picking it up, and that course actually helped me to understand how HTML, CSS, and JavaScript work together. So that was a course that actually probably turned my career in a few years. So it's those tools, HTML, JavaScript, CSS. Even though there are a few types of JavaScript, it does take time to learn. But once you learn one, the second one won't take that much time. That's what I discovered.
Yeah, that is correct. I have some experience with web development as well, so it's certainly a very, very very wide area. You have all of those packages. We have like those that you mentioned, and there's a lot more hidden ones, large ones. Those that are used by the industry, those that are not. Yeah, that's correct. But yeah, there's a lot of ways you can get started, and of course, Dr. Wai Hao has shared that you can get it by you can learn from courses, of course, and we actually had a workshop from Dr. Lau this morning from Lead. So if you have any questions, you can of course you can just message it in the comments, and then we will have our team mention his contact. But yeah, all right, great to hear from Wai Hao. Now moving on, we have Erhan. Can you perhaps you're quite familiar with Power BI, yeah? So, or is it BL? Sorry, but in terms of that aspect, can you share how it is actually used? Since I'm actually not too familiar, and also our audience is probably not too familiar with it.
Okay. I think a lot of the end product of an analytics project is actually visualization. We try to actually make visualization easy for our clients, so that it's easier for them to do their own investigation. It's also almost self-serve analytics. We build simple algorithm, some form of a lot of regression analysis and all that, a lot of the usual AI algorithm, and then we push down to the user to actually use it. I think most often than not is actually just to copy and paste into a PowerPoint, and then they report to their management. That's on one level. Number two is actually to try to they themselves are actually slightly more strategic. They want to do their own investigation. That's usually the good interaction that we have with our clients, and trying to understand what they want to do, how they want to do it, and try to backtest our algorithm, whether it actually meet with their criteria or not. And then try to, there's a lot of iterations there, a lot of interaction. That's where the fun is actually doing data work, at least for me, because I'm a data analyst. A lot of this fancy algorithm that Swastas talk about, I usually listen to Dr. Aptik and the data scientist team in Kotak Sakti. I do a lot more front facing. That's why the Power BI, Tableau, QuickSight, Google Analytics comes in handy for me. Yeah, that's.
Here's a question. Have you ever had to go beyond Power BI?
A lot of time, actually. I think bulk of the work is actually maybe 75% is actually Power BI. The algorithm takes about maybe 20% of the time. build and then visualize. I think, but the client usually just want the visualization first, so that it's easier for them to talk to their management, talk to their supervisors and all that, and then we'll do the hard work in that sense. And I think with doing this, we also find out that how people actually collect data, and data collections is actually one of the most important things that you need to make sure get done. Because I mean, we can do a lot of algorithm, fancy stuff. Actually, when the data collection is messy, I mean, is not correct. There's no single line of truth in the data collection. There's nothing you can do, and usually the product is just rubbish.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's roughly the journey that we saw.
Yeah. Noted on that. Yeah. So I see. So of course, yeah. In terms of data visualization, yeah, I see. So that's now the audience, of course, knows what Power BI is usually used for. There's actually another tool called Tableau, and I think Dr. Stam, we can share a bit on that. Am I correct? And also welcome
Hopefully.
back.
Thank you. Hopefully. My internet is not going to stop now. Okay, about Tableau. Actually, I would like to talk about two tools, Tableau and Superset, because these are the two tools that we use within CADS. Tableau is really one of the most popular, basically, data visualization tools out there. A lot of companies are using it, primarily, I have to say, because the management actually loves it, all right, not really because it is a top end, but as part of, knowing skills, using and knowing about this is really, really good, okay. However, what we have in CADS as well is, and I'm sort of like it very much, is Superset, Apache Superset. This is a data visualization tool developed by Airbnb. It is free, okay, and it's very simple to use if you know Python, okay, and that's a bit of a small issue. Basically, it's not for the novices, okay. It's not something that Tableau, everybody loves Tableau because they can go in, they have a very nice environment, to click, drop, and create some very nice dashboards very, very easily, all right? But for Superset, it is not something like that because someone needs to know Python and a bit of programming in order to start playing with this. This is more for engineers, okay? But why I'm talking about this too is that a data visualization tool like Tableau can be used a lot by analysts, for instance, that they want to connect to a database and basically play and make get some insights actually out of this. But if you have a project and you have created some metrics and you have some KPIs and some data and some insights using Python, okay, then it is extremely easy to plug this Superset dashboard on top of that without doing any translations, actually any additional coding, in order to speed up basically the process. That's why basically within CADS we use both tools, and I would like to share this too, okay, with you. Any questions?
Yeah, perhaps, yeah. So no, none. Is there anything that Wai Hao or Erhan or Suhasan would like to follow up on that?
Yeah. I actually like Tableau because you can design very beautiful visualization on Tableau easily. I mean, it's slightly more complicated than Power BI, but it looks nice. But Power BI works because I think because it's Microsoft and it's easy to use, even though it's ugly actually.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, for information, everyone, for the audience, Power BI is for Microsoft, and Tableau is actually a Google tool. So that's just for information. Is it Google? No? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Salesforce.
It's
Noted for that.
Google have a different tool. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on then, seems like Waihao has dropped out. Fine. Perhaps Suhasan, you can introduce some of the tools that are used for data science then. So we've talked about data analyzing and data visualization, web development. So now jumping to data science, a bit more of the, I think, back end side. Perhaps you can share some of the tools that are used.
So before I start, maybe I'll share a story. So when I was in university studying physics, this is another physics here. So we were taught Python in my first year. So we used it for data analysis, data visualizations, a lot of simulations. And then I had my personal tutor. He was the head of particle physics, and he was leading a few research studies at CERN, the particle accelerator. And he shared this in my first year. He said, Python is probably the most useful skill I would learn in my first year. And along all those fundamental physics stuff, right? Probably because most physicists don't go into physics. So after a few years of using it, I agree. I think Python is very powerful, and because it's so simple and easy to learn compared to other more advanced languages, so that you can easily pick it up and immediately use it to start solving problems, right? It saves a lot of time for you and to start solving problems. That's why I really like Python for that example. And it goes even beyond data analysis and data visualizations, right? You can still use it for data analysis, but you can also use it to transform the data as many ways as you can. You can also use it to automate a lot of algorithms if you have for this. If you ask me how to get started on Python, you can probably find a full list of how to master Python online. But from my experience, two things. One, if you're a complete beginner in programming, it's probably better for you to master the fundamentals of the programming itself. So you can really know what is available there for you to use. Secondly, if you really want to looking to use Python for data science specifically, a lot of people wait too long for them to until they master the fundamentals in Python before they actually go into data science. I think it's probably better to go straight into applying it while you still have the gist of programming. One of the websites that I started off with is Kaggle.com. It's a very good beginner friendly website, and they have a few micro courses where you can start just going through their quick notebooks to practice your Python and quickly apply that to real problems. For Kaggle, they also have challenges. I'm sure you've heard of a lot of data science challenges. So one of the neat things about Kaggle is you can actually see the notebooks from the winners. I actually learned a lot from there to see how they think and how they structure the problems. At least most importantly in terms of the EDA, the exploratory data analysis part of it. You're gonna get stuck, as any software engineering. I guess Stack Overflow will be a great companion for that. So that's Python, and to share on where else it's used. So in Moneyline, we have a data scientist, and we also have a team called AI engineers. Essentially, they help us help data scientists to productionize whatever models or rule sets that we have. And most of our AI engineering system works on Python. So apart from Python, there's one more crucial language that I initially underestimated when I started off with product analytics, which is SQL or SQL. So it's a standard query language. A high level, you use the language to query data from a database. And I guess, as a student, you don't really work with huge databases, and most of us use Excel or CSVs to store data. So that's why I actually underestimated. And like when I started out with data scientist in product analytics, like 85% of the time I use SQL, right? Because what we want is the quick insight into data and looking for the actionable insights. Any further segmentation you want to do, or more complicated or more automated analysis you want to do, that's where Python can come in. So really the key takeaways from my side is knowing Python and SQL would be immensely powerful for DS. Mastering this will make you stand out, and also rather than really focusing on the syntaxes and the tools. The main point of using these tools is to how do we use the correct tools to solve problems correctly and quickly, right? To go for that business value.
So Hassan, if I may ask the question, what do you think about the no-code tools that's available? I mean, in the market like Dataiku or Alteryx. How I mean, how are people using it in the field, whether they are using it or not?
From Moneyline, because we get pretty deep with data, we don't use it. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about the business value, right? And there are probably some maybe SMEs or maybe medium enterprises where they can use this to get that, because some of them probably don't even have that foundation in data value, right? They probably don't even have like a proper charts and that gives us that information. And I guess being a product manager in my company, it's about the speed of execution and the speed of learning. So rather than really spending a lot of time to come up with a really perfect solution, we, at least for tech companies, right, we tend to go for the MVP products that gives us the result right now, and then we iterate, like you guys mentioned, that iterative process, right? So probably the no-code tool will save a lot of time and effort to get to that MVP level and validate that hypothesis that this solution works, and then probably we can invest in more resources to build a proper one.
Awesome.
Yeah, great sharing by Suhasan. Yeah, on the importance of SQL and also SQL and also Python. So now we're going to jump into now the resources that perhaps I think Dr. Stam can share on. Something you mentioned that a while back ago with our conversations with you. You mentioned that CATS they've been using something called CATS AI. Am I correct?
CATS AI is our platform, basically, that we have launched recently. Okay, we have launched this, and this is what basically I wanted to discuss about the project. But anyways, the internet stopped me here. That we basically collect intelligence around the world, trying to find, especially US and Southeast Asia. Okay. In terms of what skills, technologies, and tools are popular for data professional roles, but also what is emerging. Okay, and this is basically the main sort of activity that we do in terms of data collection. And also, what we do also is try to identify training resources in terms of this can be basically paid courses from LinkedIn, for instance, or from Coursera, and also free training material from YouTube, from articles like Medium, for instance, in order to to ensure that all the skills basically that we basically identify as important for the data professionals, we have also material for that. That process is basically completely automated. Okay, we have a lot of basically algorithms, AI algorithms developed at the back end in order to do this fully automatically. And in terms of the resources, is that if anyone goes into the platform and basically declares of what basically they would like to learn, to become, recommendations will come from the system as well in terms of what is the market perhaps recommends for them. Okay, but depending on their background or on what they know on anything really, a lot of basically recommendations will come to them in terms of what learning paths they should follow in order, for instance, to become, for example, data scientists. And if they show, for instance, that they know Python, for example, that part actually will be skipped from the whole learning journey that they have. All right. Now, the resources for all these different basically skills that someone needs in order to become data scientist. Okay, and we can talk about all these SQL, machine learning, deep learning, NLP, which is very, very powerful these days. It is something that you can find this, okay, either by browsing, all this information there, or it will be recommended to you, and this is the easiest, basically, way, okay, depending your preferences, okay. For example, if you want to learn more on NLP, the platform will basically recommend and send you material in order to learn about this, okay. So that's in Catch AI. This is where basically you're going to find these sort of resources, okay.
Thanks on sharing all of that. So I see. So basically, Cat's AI is more of some of a way to help. Is it your clients to basically gather courses? Is that correct?
It's we basically okay. We basically recommend learning paths for data professionals in order to learn and become data scientists, for instance, data analysts, etc. Okay. Now, but whatever basically learning path we provide to them, it comes from skills that we continuously basically update based on intelligence that we gather, okay, in order to find out, for instance, what visualization tools perhaps are needed by the market, okay, or perhaps what type of, let's say, deep learning platform, TensorFlow, for instance, is at the moment, okay, or some others is important for the industry, okay. So this type of information is something that we collect, okay, like I said, in terms of gathering intelligence. Basically, we formulate the learning paths in such a way to make the maximum effort, all right. And of course, the learning always comes with basically sources and materials, basically, which is collected by platforms like LinkedIn or Coursera. But also there are free material as well from YouTube and other sources, basically, that we collect. Okay, so yeah.
Yeah, noted on that.
Okay, I think I was breaking here. Anything, some clarifications from my end? My connection here is terrible today. I'm very sorry about this.
Yeah, no worries. So now we basically, just to sum up this section, we're going to move on to the third section now, actually, as we're a bit low on time. So just to sum up our section on this, we talked about a lot of the tools that we've been using. We talked about Python, we talked about SQL, we talked about web development, where we have the HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Our moderators will be our other moderators will be actually sharing these all in the comments. So for the audience, you can check those out. We've also talked about the aspects on, how Power BI, in terms of data visualization, how it can be used, also as well as Tableau. And then we also touched on, how CADS itself, their internal, basic proprietary software, to basically do, bring how resources are being obtained. Yeah. So all right, great. So now that I've talked about all of those tools, of course, if any of you panelists, if you have any resources to provide our audience, you can of course share them to us, and we'll have them shared to our audience. And yeah, in the meantime, we're gonna jump into our third and final section of this short panel discussion. Finally, we're going to talk about how in terms of Malaysia itself, how it's keeping up with the advancements of data. So how in terms of the demand and opportunities available, how is the prospects that are present in Malaysia? So perhaps especially like for Whitehao, actually, we know that you are actually working in an overseas company, but based in Malaysia. Am I right?
Yeah, I work in Malaysia though. Okay, so here's ever since the pandemic broke out, there are a number of companies that are based overseas, which are looking for remote workers, and they can be global. The company headquarters could be in New York. You could be working from Manila. So these opportunities do exist. The downside about these opportunities is you're no longer competing just against people in Malaysian shores. You're competing against developers from China, from Portugal, Spain, London, and so on. So you can try and apply for such vacancies, but they're not that easier if compared to trying to get a job in Malaysia. You have to adjust to their working culture, you have to adjust to their time zone, and so on. Even though you'll be earning, the good side is you'll be earning from foreign exchange. So these opportunities do exist.
Yep, that's correct. So perhaps you can touch on like perhaps the challenges. Of course, you already touched on the in terms of the competition, but skill sets wise, is there any like differences in terms of the skill set that Malaysians that get from local institutions compared to overseas? Is there a reason why there's kind of Malaysians not really venturing out to the area of computer science as much compared to like US or Europe? There's actually a wild, very uprising in terms of this area. It's quite popular. So, but in contrast to Malaysia, doesn't seem to be that much of a that kind of popularity yet.
This one I think is more to do with behavior. It's not technically to do with skill sets. Most people just want a standard 9 to 5 job. After 5 p.m., just want to kick back, relax, and so on. But a lot of these companies, they operate in time zones of their headquarters. So you might be working at like 12 midnight to 8 a.m. Those kind of working time slots also are there. You also have to fit into their culture. They work differently compared to us. So on top of the technical challenges, you also have the people skill challenges, which I think is the additional barrier. Most people don't apply for these jobs because number one, they don't know these opportunities exist. Number two is when these companies ask, "Hey, how much are you expecting from this job?" Cannot answer because there's no expectation. There's no data for you to compare to, and so on. So there's a lot of barriers. But I do know a few of my friends who are working in KL. But for US-based companies. So they're raking in the forex, but to get it, not easy. That's it.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Wai-Hao. So in terms of perhaps this is probably, I guess, just opinion, perhaps maybe just open to the whole floor. What is your opinion, in terms of just Malaysia itself then? Would anyone want to, in terms of data, how's the state of it being implemented? Yeah. Would anyone like to go first?
For Malaysia, I would like to go first. I think the demand for data professionals in Malaysia is strong, and it's for the last few years, and it is strong. Okay, maybe there was a dip in because of the COVID pandemic, but now it is back on track. If you ask any organization here, they will say that finding appropriate talent is the big basically problem, and that's really the case. Okay, that a lot of organizations, they have started the digital transformation now. Okay, and basically in order to do that, they need data literacy, data literate talent, to progress, and this is really the bottleneck at the moment. All right. Now, in terms of the providing this talent, CATS actually works a lot on this. We have started the Data Star program. We have been running this for several years, as a matter of fact, and the conclusion, it's a big success because we have managed to train hundreds of graduates, basically, in order to find data science or data analyst type jobs in the industry in Malaysia, of course. But at the same time, the important thing is that not because we managed to train them, but they found all of them within 3 months at worst. Basically, they managed to find jobs, okay, and with salaries which is better than the average, because part of the programs is that we ask, for some additional, basically, salary. So that's a big success, and in terms of the program, of course, I need to need to say this, but also trend in terms of the demand within Malaysian industry in order to absorb all these high-skilled, basically, data professionals. So I think the demand is here, and it will be here for many years, basically. In fact, for me, this will never stop. I'm on the other hand, basically, looking at companies, because it's not like talking about data scientists. I mean, there was, this article, being data scientist is the sexiest, perhaps, job in the world. Okay, I don't go into that. I think for me, the way that there will be a need for continuously data literate employees in general, not only data scientists, is because every company has to become data driven in order to survive. Okay, and this requires a change in their mentality from top to bottom. Okay, and having appropriately, basically, trained employees, data literate, in order to build, to breathe, feel, and live with data, understanding the business problems and applying the data that they have in order to solve it. Okay, this is an ongoing, never-ending sort of process to me. Okay. So yeah, that's what I would like to share with you.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
couldn't hear you for a
Well,
moment at the end, but yeah, thank you for sharing that. Erhan, I think you have something to raise. Am I right? Am I correct?
Okay, I just want to chime in from Dr. Curtis' comments just now. I think the good work that CATS and the training companies have provided over the past few years is actually a large scale of data engineers, data scientists, data analysts now populating in enterprises across the country, or at least in KL. What we find missing now is actually the professionals to manage this talent. These talents are now, they know how to do it. They know exactly how to do it. I mean, what to do, but they need managers that understand how to talk to management above them. And
yeah.
this, sorry, this is somehow I think missing in the market. I think probably CATS can actually push a bit more on I think mid managers programs, so that these managers can now be functional as also AI managers or data analytics manager for the team. I think I want to replicate Suhasan, like 1,000 of them. How do I do
Yes,
that?
exactly right. I think when I first came across like AIP, I'm like, what is that, right? Like, I don't understand what the roles is about. But this is exactly what you mentioned about, because data scientists know how of the tools, so they're very numbers driven. But how do we use that resource properly so we connect with what the business wants? Yeah, and I think this is a rising role itself. I mean, if you guys are interested, not just data scientists, but if you want to connect more on the dots on the data science and business value, that's actually one of the roles that's rising as well. And Moneyline is like a company that we still require a lot more AI PMs. Essentially yes, AI product managers or data product managers to connect the dots between DS resource and business value.
Yeah.
On top of that, right? Like, how is Malaysia keeping up with advanced data? Not really. It's just one sample size. So essentially, Moneyline, right? It's pretty interesting that it's a business fully based on US, like we only serve American market, but the entire engineers DS people are working on that is based on Malaysia. So like 90% of data scientists work on Moneyline are Malaysians. So there is still like like how CATS is. There are a lot of people that go through that process from Moneyline, and there are a lot of people who come from I see a lot of people from Asia Pacific University. So I guess these institutions really go for that data driven skills that develop. So I guess it's more on the business side and the company side to how to use it.
Yep. Great points raised. Now that we've kind of discussed about the opportunities that are current, or rather, like perhaps the the whole current state, I guess we can, before we kind of cap this off, just for the audience. Of course, most of our audience is university students and also college students. Perhaps you can detail some of their suggested before entering the actual workforce. What do you think? Perhaps this director to Hassan. Do you think the skill sets are required to get into that field?
Yep. If you're talking about interviews, right? Usually it's the data science managers that interview the potential candidates. But what I can share is more on the AI PM perspective, because essentially when we work, at least in Moneyline, like I bring in the task, and we go through how a product manager go through, right? We lay out the foundation of the task and what needs to be done to drive the business. But so there are some expectations set on the data scientist, data analyst side to fulfill those tasks, right? So arguably, AIPM is probably your most important stakeholder when it comes to data scientist. So I can share what's expected and what can set you on a path of being a successful data scientist, apart from a view of a data science manager or the hiring manager. So in terms of, there are two things, right? Technical skills and non-technical skills. So technical skills, of course, knowing the know-hows, the tools will help us arrive to the solution quickly and effectively. And I think one thing that hard to learn from online courses is how you approach problems, right? The problem-solving frameworks. I think this is something it's hard to learn, and it's hard to get a clear structure of how to get it. But I can share a few elements of. Yes. So in terms of frameworks, right? Being in the tech industry, we want to be as agile as possible. So what we want is really the speed of the execution and the insights, right? We want to run a quick experiment. How do we run it so that it doesn't take up a lot of engineering resources to build? Or are there any other existing data that we can use to derive to validate the hypothesis that this particular business solution will work without actually building it? So that agile mindset is needed for data scientists, right? On the other hand, we need more. Since you have the word science in it, a lot of people forget about it, right? It's still a scientist job, which means, depends on the job description, right? But at least the data science I work with, we run a lot of experiments, which means you need to think like a scientist. You need to come up with hypotheses that you want to test, whether through experiments or through data analysis, and then lay that as the foundation to build more solutions to iterate from there. Besides that, you also need critical thinking, because still, as a scientist, you're going to come up with a lot of assumptions. You need to know what are the assumptions you're making, and you need to document them, because whatever solutions the data product they're creating is based on those assumptions. And if those assumptions are, not well defended, that means your whole work is pretty weak, right? So at least in terms of the AIPM, this is the most important thing, other than tools, is the how we approach the problems. That's the technical skills, or the tools that will help you solve those problems. In terms of non-technical skills, which is this has been said a lot of times already, it's about how you make others understand you and your work. So of course the first thing is communications, right? So it's how you communicate your technical complicated work to others, especially the non like muggles. I'm probably partially muggle. So how you want to make it the presentation concise and clear, how you put it in words, and what are the charts that you want to show, right? In data science work, you can have a lot of charts to show, right? But you need to make sure that who's your end audience are, and what they're looking for, right? What is this person want? What the particular business metric that this person's looking for, so I can help with. So if this guy is from like finance, you probably don't want to show him a lot of things, a lot of charts from operations, right? So we have to personalize the data product that the data scientists are producing towards that particular audience. This is something, again, it comes with experience, right? And it's not usually thought, as part of the tools, but this is probably as important or probably more important than tools, because this if your data products, your recommendations, your solutions is not picked up by the management or the people who, the end user, because you didn't communicate clearly, then the whole effort is gone, right? So the communication is still part of that delivery of your solution. Other than that, of course, I talked about the scientific method. You want to back up anything with evidence, so you can persuade people with evidence. Because again, evidence means it's truth, right? Which means at the end of the day, when the management decides to deploy the solutions and deploy the models, you'll be confident that it's going to work, right? Thirdly and finally, in terms of non-technical skills, you're still a scientist job, which means your product is not really like a software or like a app, but your products, in terms of the product analytics, right? Your products are the documentation that you want to produce. So you want to make sure the your insights are well documented and kept, because it's like a scientist job, right? So I guess the final takeaway from an AI PM perspective, for all the um, data scientists, is that um, tools are great. You're expected to have a great tool set for you to use that against the problems. But also in terms of the mindset, it will be very, very powerful if you focus on the impact driven by your work and configure your work and the approach towards that problem in a way that maximizes the business impact as quickly as possible, as easy as possible, without requiring much resources. If you do this, you'll be unstoppable as a data scientist, at least product analytics.
Right. Thank you, Hassan, for the very, very detailed response. Really appreciate it. I think this will certainly help a lot of our participants today. And of course, that the whole aspect of the technical and non-technical skills, those two aspects are of course really important. And the whole focus on the scientist role is something that I think a lot of people haven't been noticing, which is a great point that you've been raised. All right. So actually, that's kind of, I think that's a good point to wrap up the panel discussion. Of course, as we don't actually really have many questions or actually from the audience, so we'll actually, I think this is a good point to add, and I think we'll keep it, short and concise today. We're going to be wrapping this session up soon. So actually, I'll have our admins share the links to, I think, all of our panelists today. We'll have this shared to all of the audience in the comments. So please go and you can connect them on LinkedIn if you would like to talk more. If you have any questions, of course, you can direct it to them. Or you can, of course, reach out to MSTW itself. If you have any questions, of course, you can direct it to us, and we'll try address it and help you out and have them passed over to the panelists even. All right. So I think with that, I'd like to say thank you for all of you panelists to be here with us, and thank you for spending your time today for half an hour, an hour and a half, actually. So thank you all. Thank you so much. And we hope to have you around for perhaps next year even. And have a pleasant evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Yue.